Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Millie and I love indie makeup, especially shiny, shifty, and sparkly eyeshadows. And today I'm going to be talking about some indie brands that have really beautiful packaging, branding, etc. If you didn't know, if you're new to my channel, I am a full-time graphic designer, so I really just am a sucker for packaging and anything that is beautiful, and definitely packaging will make me buy things. So I thought this would be a fun video. Let's shout out some indie brands that have some really beautiful packaging. So in no particular order, this is not a ranking, we're just gonna go through them. So first up, I wanted to talk about Game Beauty. They are a newish brand, I would say within the last year, and they have some really stunning packaging on their palettes. They actually have a CGI artist that creates all of these worlds basically that you see on the packaging, and I will put up some close-ups of the packaging so we can really get into the nitty-gritty here. I love that the graphic is all over the entire palette. It's not just like on the front or something. It's like full bleed all across. It's really beautiful. I also really appreciate the way that they handle delicately their brand and the palette name on the front. It just lets the graphic really shine, and I also do love their logo. I think it's nice and simple and elegant. And then along those same lines, we have Menagerie Cosmetics, of course, and they are just known for their beautiful artwork and illustrations on the front of the packaging, and every one has a different theme, and it just makes so much sense, and illustrations are just absolutely beautiful. I know they have an artist or a couple of artists that create these for them. So we've got the Whale Song palette, which I just absolutely love this. I remember the first time I saw this, something about just the way that this is put together with the whales and then the angle of looking up at the whales and all the little fishies. I also love the colors, and I love that the inside of the palette reflects the outside of the palette. Then we have the Pastel Pup, of course, super cute. Also love on this one that the pastel tones throughout the illustration. Then we have the Feral palette, which I mean absolutely just a little bit more fairy-like, a little bit less realistic, but still absolutely stunning. And then one of the more recent ones, which is Flight Club, which this one is just so absolutely adorable. I love the little bat. I honestly never thought of bats being cute until I saw the cover of this packaging. And then lastly, we have the Serenity Palette, which is their collaboration with Annette's Makeup Corner, and we have some stunning butterflies and flowers. Very colorful, and also like the way that they treat the name of the palettes. So Flight Club has a little bit more of a fun typography on the front, and then Serenity just has that like really fancy S in the font. And then they also have really cute single eyeshadow packaging. I love this kind of, what would you call it? It's basically like a watercolor of some sort, but I just love the color. Their logo is really nice and simple at the top, and it's metallic, and it's just everything is nice and easy to read on here. So now on to a brand that does a lot of patterns, but they do them very tastefully, because there definitely could be some patterns that are a little bit like too much, you know, maybe too wild in terms of just like there's too much going on versus being nice and subtle. So the next brand is Nomad Cosmetics. I currently only have one of their palettes, and that's the Iceland Fire and Ice palette, and this one is just so beautiful. I love that it has a texture on it. I love the metallic logo with the name of the palette and then the metallic blue outline around it, and then I absolutely love the texture. It just feels very like icy. It just totally makes sense for Iceland. And then they have some other packages that I will put up photos of that they have beautiful patterns on the outside. I think the Tokyo palette is really cute, as well as the newest palette, America's Parks, which is really just a little bit like more happening on it, but it just makes so much sense with the theme that I really appreciate it. And I think overall they have a really nice sense of just how they treat their brand, and the brand is very cohesive in the way that they treat their logos and all the other information on their palettes, as well as the website, as well as their product photography. So I just really all around really love their packaging. Next up, let's talk about, well, this brand is no longer like I think the best brand due to the way that their eyeshadows are always kind of like hit or miss, but that would be Millennial Cosmetics. I mean, you can't take it away from them. They do some really beautiful packaging. So first up, we have the Mary Jane palette, which is a release from 2021. And I just really think that it's fun the way that they add like different textures into the front of the packaging. And I'm sure that it's not very cheap, especially to do it, especially this one where it has plastic inset, some almost like glitters, but they're not glitters. They're like flat, you know, pieces of metallic paper or something. The only thing is that I would say that on this particular palette, the full bleed image is a little bit pixelated, but I think it's fine because you don't really pay attention to that as much. And of course, we have to talk about the Morte and Vida palette. I mean, this combo is just legendary. I don't think this will ever not get talked about. Like, I feel like in 5 more years we're still going to be talking about how absolutely beautiful this packaging is. I know they had some sort of a graphic artist do this artwork, and it's exactly his style, and I think this just fits so beautifully. And I love the embossing as well as the like spot glossing, and just everything is absolutely beautiful. And the fact that the 2 palettes form a full photo is also just very clever. I love their stuff. And then we have the Millennial Pinks, which I don't really care for the shimmers in this palette whatsoever, but I think it's still fun. You've got a little bit of a textural element on the front again, and a very nice and clean treatment of the type, which they always do really nicely. And in general, they have some really beautiful product photography too, which I really appreciate. And I do also appreciate the way that they just kind of downplay their logo at the bottom usually, and it's nice and just like really thin font. Doesn't feel like it's intruding on the entire design. And then we also have the 420 palette, which this one is really cool texture, super fun. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I don't think this is like something that someone would think to do for a palette, which is use this kind of texture. And it's just super fun, and I think it makes a lot of sense, like conceptually, with this whole launch. Though I really hope that they switch it up with the actual eyeshadow shades in their palettes, because recently they've been doing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. But that's a whole nother thing. All right, next let's talk about Kaleidos Makeup, because I think we can all agree they have some stunning packaging, really interesting concepts, and I feel like they're not really so set on adhering to their like a specific brand look. I feel like it's still cohesive, but like in a really weird way where everything is totally like kind of different, but it still feels like Kaleidos. So that's really cool. They also have some really interesting packaging. So this is actually the first palette I ever got from them, and it is the Electro Turquoise palette, and I love this texture on it. It feels like it's like a shrink wrap or something, and it's like shiny and a little bit like iridescent and has just like a lot happening, and then the way that it opens up. And I love that the colors of the inside of the palette are reflected on the outside. It's just great attention to detail. Then we have the Lunar Lavender palette, which also came with the Sashimi City palette. So they're kind of like similarly themed, but they're different, but they still look similar. Like, you know that they're from the same collection, but you can tell that they're like different from this collection. So I really love that, because we love a brand that can do like very different kinds of things and still look like their own brand. Also, they have really cool packaging for all of these palettes. Like the actual cardboard is really interesting. I've kept it because I love it, and I want to keep it just in case in the future I need it for some sort of like an inspiration for work or something. But I love that they do like a full bleed like inside and outside of the palette. I think that's very interesting. Then of course we have the Escape Pod as well as the Club Nebula, which again, totally different kinds of concepts. Like, even if you took the Kaleidos logo off of these, you would still know that's Kaleidos, because everyone knows what Kaleidos looks like and everyone knows their aesthetic at this point. I just think these are so fun because they're so totally different, and I absolutely love the way that they use texture as well as metallic foil. It just makes it just a very like tactile experience, and I think that's something that consumers do really enjoy. And then lastly, we have the most recent palette, which is the Flower Punk palette, and this one is totally different kind of packaging, which I actually really enjoy. It's very sleek, and this one once again just absolutely stunning. We have kind of like a mirror finish in the front. We've got an illustration all around, and then as well as on the glass, and then on the back we also have an illustration with some really beautiful like almost holographic shifty moths. Next, let's talk about a brand that's a little bit more of a mainstream brand but still indie, and that is Mcgrath. Listen, at first I wasn't like the biggest fan when they first came out, and then I kind of started to see all the different parts of the brand fall into place, and I really love the way that their kind of big palettes as well as the smaller palettes come with a very intricate illustration, and they're still kind of themed similarly, but they're so different from each other. But they do have really beautiful, luxurious packaging. The way that you take the string and you unwrap it from around the center, I don't know what to call them, circles or buttons. Just feels very high end. And then I also do have the concealer packaging here, which opens very similarly like the foundation packaging, which is basically kind of like a cigarette box. And I just love that. I think it's really nice. I also really like that this package is nice and simple. It's like a matte black all over, and then we've got the Mcgrath logo that is nice and metallic and just a little bit raised. So just absolutely beautiful. Attention to detail. Again, I just really enjoy that. And then I do have also this lipstick box, which is the Blitz Trance lipstick. And I know the other lipsticks have a little bit different packaging in terms of like the way it looks, because it depends on the kind of finish it is. And this one is like a shiny, sparkly, glittery lipstick, so it makes sense for the packaging. It feels nice and sturdy. It's very thick. Also opens up kind of like a cigarette box, and it does have a inside cardboard extra insert to help keep the lipstick nice and snug in there. Now this outer packaging does have some stickers on it, but I don't mind it at all because I understand from a graphic design standpoint that they're printing these out. And it's just going to be, it's already going to be expensive to print something like that. Like not that expensive, but like expensive enough that it's not just like printing something like this, you're printing something like this. And so basically you're going to print out a bunch of these, and overall it's going to cost a lot less if you just put the stickers on versus if you have 20 different lipsticks trying to print out 20 lipstick specific boxes. It's going to be a lot more money than having to put a sticker on. So I totally understand. And I think the sticker still looks really nice. It's got that very like typewritery Pat McGrath font that they use. I'm actually really curious to find out what exactly the font is. I think that would be really interesting. It might even be a custom font. And then lastly, I did want to talk about Lethal Cosmetics because I do really enjoy their logo as well as like their palette design. It's got basically the same kind of vibe of the logo on the palette packaging, and I don't have any of their actual palettes, but I do really also like those. They're very themed, but they're still very much within the Lethal kind of like brand guidelines, if you will. And then they also have really nice single eyeshadow packaging as well as the blush packages. Feel very nice and sturdy. They feel like, you know, it doesn't feel like cheap paper. They have a very simple way of just putting their logo on it. They separate the type from the icon of the logo, which is very interesting that they do that on here. And you do see them using just the type a lot, actually, pretty often on packages, which definitely adds just a little bit more of an elegant kind of look to it. And then on the other hand, they also have the glitch packaging, which is basically just like hollow foil, and I love it. It makes so much sense with the concept of the glitch, and even though they're multi-chrome, so it could be multi-chromatic, which would be also cool. But I really love this, and I want like a whole sheet of just this paper to just look at and just like, I don't know, make it into a notebook or something, because it's so fun to look at. The only thing on that is it's a little hard to read everything because it is in white type, so I would say that's probably not the best. So those are all the indie brands that I think have really nice packaging, branding, etc. What have you. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these brands, if there's any other brands that whose packaging or branding that you really enjoy. And if you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe. There's so much indie makeup content already on my channel and much more to come, and you don't want to miss out. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.